It's the number of facial masks that are being brought into Australia to try to help the health system cope with what's a exponentially growing curve on this coronavirus infection rate.
Yeah, that's right, Andrew. It comes after the number of people infected in Australia has passed 2,000. There is some speculation. You mentioned that perhaps we're moving closer to a UK-style lockdown. That may well be extending, reported in some publications this evening, that it could extend to one's own home where gatherings cannot take place.
Look, that is the speculation at this stage. It's certainly nothing that we've been picking up so far. We do understand there may be some announcements tonight on commercial rent relief and removal of land taxes for certain commercial proprietors. That's something a lot of businesses are struggling with, obviously, when there's no income coming in, but there's certainly still a lot of bills piling up. Whether we see any further restrictions to try to enforce that social distancing, we'll have to really wait to see when the Prime Minister speaks in a bit over 15 minutes' time, is what we're expecting. As I say, there has been pressure on this National Cabinet to do more to arrest that steep climb in coronavirus cases. At this stage, we're not detecting that the unanimous decision has come yet.
And Andrew, of course, it's not just the health consequences, it's also the economic consequences. As we've seen, so many people already have lost their jobs. It's forecast that another 1 million Australians could join the unemployment queue. We've seen those queues forming outside social service offices, and of course the MyGov website has also collapsed for the second day in a row. So it'll be interesting to see whether the Prime Minister has more to say on measures in regards to helping people who have now lost their jobs.
Yeah, terribly sad scenes that we're seeing around the country, reminiscent of the last recession 30 years ago, and perhaps even worse than that in days and weeks to come, when we look at the final unemployment figures that will result from this awful health emergency that is also a social and economic emergency as well. We did hear from Minister Stuart Robert, who has carriage of Centrelink services, and a mea culpa from him today after he had initially said that the services were affected by a cyber attack. It turns out that there's just so many people trying to access that system who now find themselves out of work. We saw also Telstra outages today because the phone lines were just overwhelmed with people, kept on hold as they were trying to get hold of people on to get a sense from Centrelink what they could do.
Andrew, another issue which is of great interest for families is schooling. There has been that conflict between state and federal governments about exactly what should be in place. Of course, some state governments have already closed their schools or brought the holidays forward, yet schools do remain open elsewhere. So it'll be also interesting to see whether there is a uniform announcement made as far as schools go across the country.
Yeah, this has been the one issue that has perhaps caused more confusion than any. We saw on Sunday night the Prime Minister very firm in his words that the medical advice remained that schools should stay open and that parents needing to send their children should do so. Well, of course, we saw several states, including the territory that I'm speaking to you from now, the ACT, along with New South Wales and Victoria, make different announcements about pupil-free days and bringing forward those school holidays. So some schools, as you say, in other parts of the country remain open in a more general sense, but perhaps it's now being recognised by leaders that that position may not be sustainable. With other businesses shutting, perhaps schools too will also be closing their doors to everyone but the children of essential workers in, say, the health sector or other areas that need to remain at work.
Andrew, we'll leave it there for the moment. As mentioned, we are expecting the Prime Minister to hold a media briefing in under 15 minutes' time now. So we'll come back to that. Obviously, as soon as he steps up, we'll bring that to you. A woman in her 70s has died in a Sydney